There's something truly magical about puff pastry. That light, airy texture, the crisp golden layers, it's a thing of beauty. Now imagine all that wonder baked into a loaf of bread. That's right, we're talking about puff pastry butter bread loaf, a real showstopper. This loaf is not your average bread. It's a celebration of layers, of butter and dough working together in perfect harmony. Each bite is a delightful journey through crispness and fluffiness. Trust me, once you try it, ordinary bread will never be the same again. The best part, it's not as difficult to make as you might think. With a bit of patience and a whole lot of love, you can create this masterpiece in your own kitchen. Now, before we embark on this baking adventure, let's gather our ingredients. Remember, quality is key here. The better the ingredients, the better the loaf. For the dough, we'll need strong white bread flour. This flour has a higher protein content, which gives us that lovely gluten development, essential for a good structure. Next, we need a pinch of salt, just a touch to enhance the flavors. And of course, we can't forget the yeast, the heart of any good bread. The star of the show, however, is the butter. And not just any butter, we're talking about good quality, unsalted butter. This is what will give our loaf its richness and those irresistible flaky layers. Remember, we're aiming for a symphony of flavors here. Our first task is to bring our dough to life. This is where the journey begins, with simple ingredients that transform into something extraordinary. In a large bowl, combine the flour, salt, and yeast. These three ingredients are the foundation of our bread, each playing a crucial role. The flour provides structure, the salt adds flavor, and the yeast is our leavening agent, responsible for the rise. Make a well in the center and add lukewarm water. The temperature of the water is important. It should be just warm enough to activate the yeast without killing it. Slowly bring the ingredients together, forming a soft, slightly sticky dough. This is where the magic starts to happen, as the water hydrates the flour and the yeast begins to awaken. Now it's time for a bit of exercise. Kneading is essential as it develops the gluten network, which gives the bread its structure and chewiness. Tip the dough onto a lightly floured surface and knead for a good 10 minutes. This process is therapeutic as you push, fold, and stretch the dough, feeling it transform under your hands. The key here is to work that gluten, developing its elasticity. You'll notice the dough becoming smoother and more elastic as you knead. You'll know it's ready when the dough is smooth and springs back when you poke it. This is a sign that the gluten has developed properly and the dough is ready for the next step. Once our dough is nicely kneaded, shape it into a ball, place it back in the bowl, cover it with a clean tea towel, and let it rise in a warm place for about an hour. This resting period allows the yeast to ferment, producing carbon dioxide and alcohol, which contribute to the bread's flavor and texture. This is where the magic of yeast comes into play, as it ferments and creates those lovely air bubbles that will give our loaf its light and airy texture. Watching the dough rise is like witnessing a small miracle, as it transforms from a dense mass into a pillowy, airy dough, ready to be baked into delicious bread. While the dough is enjoying its cozy rise, let's turn our attention to the butter. Butter is the heart and soul of puff pastry, and its preparation is crucial to achieving those delicate, flaky layers that we all love. The butter needs to be at the perfect consistency, not too soft that it melts into the dough, and not too hard that it breaks through the layers. Now this is where the real magic of puff pastry happens, the lamination. Lamination is the process of folding and rolling the dough and butter together to create multiple layers. Each fold and roll is a step towards creating that perfect, airy texture. This technique involves enclosing the butter within the dough, creating those distinctive layers that puff pastry is famous for. The butter acts as a barrier between the layers of dough, and when baked, the water in the butter turns to steam, causing the layers to puff up and separate. First, shape the softened butter into a square, about half the size of your dough. This step is essential because it ensures that the butter is evenly distributed throughout the dough, which is key to achieving uniform layers. On a lightly floured surface, roll out the dough into a large rectangle, roughly 3 times the size of the butter square. The dough should be smooth and even with no cracks or tears to ensure that the butter is fully enclosed. Place the butter square in the center of the dough and fold the edges of the dough over the butter, sealing it completely. This step is crucial because any gaps or openings can cause the butter to leak out during the rolling process. Now, roll out the dough again into a long rectangle and fold it into thirds like a letter. This folding technique is what creates the layers in the puff pastry. Each fold and roll adds more layers, making the pastry flakier and more delicate. This is called a turn. A turn is a crucial part of the lamination process, and it helps to distribute the butter evenly throughout the dough. Give the dough a quarter turn and repeat the rolling and folding process. Each time you do this, you're creating more layers, which will result in a flakier pastry. This will create even more layers. The more layers you have, the flakier and more delicate your puff pastry will be. Chill the dough for 30 minutes between turns to relax the gluten and prevent the butter from melting. This resting period is essential as it allows the dough to firm up, making it easier to handle and roll out for the next turn. Section 5. Baking brilliance from oven to golden perfection. After the final turn, roll out the dough into a rectangle again about 1 centimeter thick. This step is crucial as it ensures that the layers are even and the dough is ready for shaping. Make sure to flour your surface generously to prevent sticking. Now, here's where you can get creative. The way you shape your dough can add a unique touch to your loaf. Whether you prefer a traditional shape or something more artistic, this is your moment to shine. Cut the dough into strips and arrange them in a loaf tin, overlapping slightly. This technique not only looks impressive, but also helps in creating those beautiful layers that will be visible once the loaf is baked. This will give your loaf a beautiful layered effect. Each strip will bake into a distinct flaky layer, making every slice a visual and culinary delight. Cover the loaf loosely with cling film and let it prove for another hour or until it has doubled in size. This resting period allows the dough to rise and develop its final texture. This final proof is crucial for achieving that light and airy texture. The dough should feel soft and pillowy to the touch, indicating that it's ready for the oven. While the loaf is proving, preheat your oven to 200 degrees Celsius. A properly preheated oven ensures that the loaf bakes evenly and achieves that perfect golden crust. Once the loaf has risen, brush it gently with a little milk or egg wash for a beautiful golden crust. This step adds a lovely sheen and enhances the color of the baked loaf. Bake for 30 to 35 minutes or until the loaf is golden brown and sounds hollow when tapped underneath. This is a sign that the loaf is fully baked and has that perfect airy texture inside. Section 6. The Science of Puff, Why Layers Rise to the Occasion. Now let's talk about the science behind those magical layers. When the dough is baked, the water in the butter turns into steam. This steam expands, creating pockets of air between the layers of dough. The gluten in the dough sets around these pockets of air, forming those characteristic flaky layers. The repeated rolling and folding during the lamination process is crucial for creating numerous thin layers of butter and dough. The more layers you have, the more air pockets will form during baking, resulting in a lighter and flakier texture. Section 7. Paul's Top Tips, Secrets to Puff Pastry Success. Now, I've got a few tips up my sleeve to help you achieve puff pastry perfection. Firstly, always keep everything cold. Cold butter is essential for preventing it from melting into the dough during lamination. Secondly, don't be afraid to use plenty of flour when rolling out the dough. This will prevent it from sticking and tearing. And lastly, be patient. Puff pastry takes time and precision, but the results are well worth the effort. Section 8. A loaf to remember, a feast for the senses. As the loaf cools down, you'll be greeted by the most incredible aroma. That buttery, yeasty scent will fill your kitchen, promising a truly delightful experience. Slice into the warm loaf and marvel at the intricate layers you've created. The crust will be golden and crisp, giving way to a soft and airy interior. This loaf is delicious on its own, but you can also enjoy it with a spread of butter, jam, or even a savory topping. It's incredibly versatile, perfect for any occasion. Section 9. Ready, set, bake. Your puff pastry journey begins. So there you have it. The ultimate puff pastry butter bread loaf, a testament to the magic of baking. It may seem like a challenge, but with a bit of practice, you'll be amazed at what you can create. So go on, gather your ingredients, put on your apron and embark on this baking adventure. You won't regret it.